Welcome to another episode of the Go with John show. Today, I'm very excited to have Katie Jefcoat with us, and she is the host of Everyday Happiness. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So you also have a podcast. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Sure. Well, it's called Everyday Happiness, Finding Harmony and Bliss. And it started at the beginning of the pandemic when everything felt hard and everything felt like a dumpster fire and a little bit crazy. So I, had a previous background. I was a trial attorney for a number of years. So finding happiness, I had to have some proof in it. So I really dug into the science around what happiness is, how we can do it, how we can achieve more happiness, how we can really balance that happiness and just up level a little bit. And I started learning all of these great tips and tricks. And so I started a 2-minute-a-day podcast, Everyday Happiness, every single day on everywhere you find podcasts, on Amazon, Alexa, and all the places.
Right. So every day your podcast is 2 minutes.
Yeah, between 2 and 3 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I should look into that because, we go 30 or 40 minutes, so that's a heavy lift. So
well, good thing I brought my water today.
Yes. So we are really excited to hear from you because you also have some expertise and history in real estate. So tell us a little bit about your experience in the real estate industry.
Yeah, so I work with real estate teams and title companies on all kinds of things that have to do with belonging and just understanding what it's like to be in a company where we can win at work and succeed at life. So I come in from a employee benefits standpoint and really serve that employee niche. But in the process, I have bought and sold a couple houses. I've had kids, and I've really gone through this idea of how do we want to live in the spaces we have.
Right.
So
tell us about that. So really, you've got all this great experience, and we want to hear from you. How do we live in the space?
Well, I think, so many of us, when we start looking at houses or we put an offer in on that house or we're building a house, we think about where we're going to put all of our stuff.
Right.
But we don't always think about how we are going to live in this space. And I'm really focused on being intentional about how we're going to show up and how we're going to live.
Right.
So that's where my focus is. And it comes in a couple different prongs. One of the things I learned years ago, I think I probably heard it on a podcast, like probably a lot of your listeners, we binge so many podcasts. But I heard this saying that was so impactful. And it was, how do the people I love feel loved by me? How do the people I love feel loved by me? And as I started to explore that, I started to think about how are we living in our spaces? And when I went to my children with this phrase, they told me, we are stressed out at family dinner. You try to make this big deal. You have all of this gratitude. You have all of these questions. You want to know about our day, and it totally stresses us out. What we really want is for you to show up in the morning with your cup of coffee and your phone in another room, help us make our lunches for school, do our gratitude, and do our, more ritual kind of family things in the morning and set us up for success.
Right.
And so then I came up with this concept, the family meeting, which is what we do every single morning. And it's really simple. I'll give you a few highlights, and your listeners can create their own. It's kind of like a recipe, right? You put in what you like.
Right.
We do gratitude. I watch my kids eat their vitamins, because if I don't, they don't get done. I don't know if anybody else out there, feels the same way, but my kids, they'll put them in their pockets.
Right.
They'll try to get them in the trash. It's the silliest thing. So
feed them to the dog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they got to eat their vitamins. We got to have breakfast. We have to pack lunches, talk about our day. Do you have your homework? Do you have your headphones? Do you have what you need? And then really set them up for success. So instead of rush, get to the bus, get to the bus, get to the bus. Oh my gosh, you're going to be late for the bus. Get your shoes on. Tie your shoes in the car on the way. Like, we can't handle this, right? It's really a centered time where there's built-in time in the morning.
Right.
And that's what they wanted. So I took this phrase, how do the people I love want to feel loved by me?
Right.
And this is what we did. And what I realized is our kitchen was really the center point for how our family lives. So was there enough stools at the counter? Was there a place to charge our electronics? Where was my coffee pot, right? Like, things that I really care about. How are we setting ourselves up for success?
Right.
And was there a drop zone for backpacks and shoes and lunch boxes and sports equipment and dance bags and ice skates, right? We can go on and on. How are we living in these spaces?
Right.
You know?
And that changes over time. You
Absolutely.
know, having, you know, for many years, you know, I partnered with Stanley Martin in 2006. And I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in meetings where folks are designing their homes. And, you know, sometimes I catch folks designing their home for the young kids they have. So they may have 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old kids, but they're not thinking about what their life is going to be like when they have teenagers. And one of the advantages I have is I'm sitting in these meetings all the time. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, I could be designing a home with a family who has teenagers, and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I could be with someone who has toddlers. And then the next day I could be with somebody who's going to be an empty nester, right? So I'm constantly seeing all the different phases of life, and it changes. And I think it's really important to try to remember that while you're designing your house. What are the constants? And I think you hit a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely changes. I remember when my kids were little, we had a little canvas bag for every activity. The library bag, the dance bag, the ice skating bag, the sports bag, because we couldn't keep taking all of this stuff and putting it into different bags and trying to run out of the house, and we'd always forget something.
Right.
So I needed a lot of hooks at the very beginning because I wanted to have a hook for all the different bags.
Right.
And now the children are older, we don't have as many activities, and that's changed. So now what does that look like? I used to have a drawer for all of the shoes.
Yep.
You know, like the toddler shoes. Well, now their shoes are as big as mine. They don't fit in drawers.
Yep. That's exactly right. So we always say the kitchen is the heart and soul of the house. And whenever you have a party, everybody's in the kitchen. Whenever you're cooking and having family time, it's usually in the kitchen. So do you behave differently in the morning in your kitchen than you do in the evening? Talk about that a little bit. When you have your family meeting in the morning, how is that structured in the space?
Yeah, so our family meeting, it's very ritualistic. It's such a habit that it's quite positive for us. So my husband does the dishes in the morning, which I know so many people want to just bang their head against, their desk right now, because how could you go to sleep not doing the dishes?
Right.
But for me, if my husband's going to do them and he prefers it in the morning, I'm just going to let that happen. So when the children are off to school, my kitchen is clean because he's spent time making lunches and doing dishes, and I've spent time coaching them on their gratitude and getting their vitamins, consumed and stuff like that. So they're sitting at chairs.
Right.
I'm standing with my cup of coffee in hand at all times, no matter what.
Right.
And my husband is busybodying around the other side of the island. We have like a standard island, most kitchens these days.
So why are you standing with your coffee? It's just because you feel like it, or is there a reason?
There's not a particular reason. I guess I'm a little bit of a busybody, so it's hard for me to sit down maybe. But what I was finding is I was still, maybe I was filling out paperwork, permission slips or whatever, or, doing something else. So, I just was always standing. And the key to our successful family meeting is no electronics.
Right.
And I think that's been key for us. But then if you think about it, so as you mentioned this, you move through spaces, right? So that's how we do our family meeting. The children are at school by 8:30 in the morning during COVID, and now my husband doesn't go into the office every day. So once I get back from dropping the kids off at school, we have our own little like coffee time.
Right.
And that is never in the kitchen.
Right.
That is in our living room. I have like my favorite chair
Right.
in our living room. We just have our living room with our TV and then a dining room. We don't have like a sitting room, living room.
Sure.
So I sit in one chair, my husband sits in the other chair, no phones. He drinks a Coke, I drink a coffee, and we just catch up on like, how's our day gonna go? What do you have going on? Where are we at? But it's just a time, sometimes just 15 minutes, just to
Right.
connect
Right.
as a couple trying to raise kids and do all the things that, we are in this phase of life.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy and wild
just-
and amazing.
It just swallows you up whole.
Yeah.
Yep,
Which is
yep.
so much fun.
Yep. So what does your gratitude portion of your meeting look like when you say, talk about that?
Yeah. So sometimes I think gratitude is like appreciation. And if I'm being really real, I think it's semantics. I think whether you say gratitude or appreciation, they're basically the same thing. So what do I appreciate? Where am I going to focus, right? What we focus on grows. How are we going to achieve, aggressive optimism throughout the day for the children that, encourage them to believe that they can really do anything that they put their mind to.
Right.
So it's a lot of appreciation, gratitude, forward thinking, optimism, just, setting them up for a successful day, whatever that looks like. If it's a big test, we want to talk about that.
Right.
How are you feeling about that? Do you have anxiety or do you not? Are you going to crush it? How can we
Right. support
support you? Do you have any questions? And if you do, please ask my husband because I will know nothing. But just, stuff like that. Well,
Right.
I mean, sometimes we're getting out bowls and plates and we're talking about the solar system and the moon and how we're moving around. And my husband and I are both like acting out the solar system. And the children are like, okay, you two are clearly crazy, but we're
Right.
here for it.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Good. Fantastic. That's great. That is a great way to start your day for sure. So always on a positive note in the morning.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some days are better than others, right? This is not every day is perfect. Not every day is happy. There could be things happening in our world, in our space, in our own personal life that, feels heavy.
Right.
But there's always room for gratitude and a little bit of glitter if you can look for it.
Sure. Absolutely. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Katie, let's talk about some things that folks may want to consider when they're trying to design their house about their space that will contribute to everyday happiness. So we'll be right back with more with Katie Jefcoat. A lot of folks think that building a custom home is a complicated and arduous process. It doesn't have to be. At Stanley Martin Custom Homes, we have the process down to a science. We will bring you through the buying, design, and building phase one step at a time. Head on over to webuildonyourlot.com and check us out. Reach out to us if you want to get started on the path to your very own Stanley Martin custom home. All right, welcome back. We are still here with Katie Jefcoat. Katie, thank you for coming in again today. We appreciate it.
You bet.
So tell us. So you're a podcast host, Everyday Happiness, and can be found everywhere where you consume your podcast. So let's talk a little bit about space and living in your space. And for our Stanley Martin buyers and people who may be thinking about designing a house, we can talk a little bit about designing a space. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the biggest thing that you can do to create the most bang for your buck when you're designing a space or when you're viewing, real estate is to really think about how you are going to live in the space. It's so easy to get caught up, not only in where you're going to put all of your furniture and all of the things, but just to get caught up in the excitement of it, that if you can just take a pause and just think about the space, usually you make better decisions.
Right. I'll just throw in a couple things. So one of the things I did, so I built a house in 2013 on vacant land. And we went out and spray painted the floor plan on the lot. And then we took our camping chairs and we sat and we put the camping chairs where we thought our couch would go. And we tried all this stuff. We ended up rotating the house 90 degrees from where we started by going through this exercise. And it's really hard to envision space when you spray paint it on the ground because you don't have any barriers. But we set up, because I'm in real estate, yard signs that you can stick in the ground, like open house signs or directional signs. And we had these stuck all over the place. So we could literally like walk through our floor plan and try to feel it. And it's an incredible exercise. And we learned a lot by doing that, but it helped us understand how we were going to live and how we moved through the kitchen. We actually redesigned our kitchen because we had a kitchen that had a dead end, and we actually opened it up so it's a galley kitchen, so we could walk all the way through the kitchen into the morning room. It's a really helpful exercise. So I think when you're designing a home, that's great. But if you have an existing home and you're going to buy a new home, then it's a little more difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what you're doing and where your market is. I think, when we were building our house in, 2010 or 2011, we, moved some windows around. We, instead of doing a bay window that the builder had, we put in sliding glass doors out to a screened-in porch. We took a window that was going to be above the sink and closed it off because we were so close to our neighbors anyway.
Right.
And just having these thoughtful discussions with your, advisor, whether it's your real estate agent or your builder or, all of these people, they have great ideas too. And so like using a resource like you to really talk about how you're going to live in spaces and what you can do and how you can move things around. Like we changed coat closets and we took out pantries and put in pocket doors and, things that were more organic to us.
Right.
And so just using that, even closets is such a big thing. Like how are you going to use a closet? How many pairs of shoes do you have? Like thinking about that is really important, especially if you get to build a house from scratch.
Right. No, that's true. And I think it's also very important to realize that you're not going to live in your new house the way you're going to live in your old house. It's a totally new opportunity to have a new way of living. One of my favorite stories to tell is we had a customer, 15 years ago. And we were designing a house for him and his wife and their kids. And he wanted a door from the owner's bedroom into the laundry room. And we designed it and we said, hey, that's a little odd. Most people don't want to connect their laundry room to the owner's bedroom because there's also a door from the hallway into the laundry room. So this went on through several iterations. And finally, Michael Schnitzer, the president of Stanley Martin Custom Homes, said, why do you want this door here? Can you help me understand what it is? And he says, well, it's because I don't have a closet. And every morning when I wake up, I have to go out into the hallway and then into the laundry room to get dressed. And his wife immediately said, that's because you don't have a closet in our current house and there's nowhere to put your clothes except for the laundry room. But he had it in his mind that this is the way life is and this is the way it has to be. And once he realized, yes, I do have a closet, and started visualizing how he was going to live in the new house, we obviously took that door out. But it taught me very, very, very early on that folks in general can get trapped in the maze of their existing home in their mind, and they're trying to recreate parts of that maze in their new home. And I think that's a habit that I look out for. When I see people doing that, I try to break them out of it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Or when you're living in your current house and you're building or buying something new, you think it has to be 360 degrees different. You're like, well, my closet is, one size here, so it has to be at least double in the next place, or
Right.
triple.
Right.
Like, you can't see past how you're going to make things work. And
Yeah.
I mean, we all do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the fun about getting a new space, and also the challenges for professionals like you to be like, okay, why do you need this? What do you want? How important is this? Because we don't always get everything we want. Even, when you're buying something or building something, it could just not work exactly
Right.
the way you think.
Yeah, that what that's my number one rule in real estate. You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. It just never works out. There's always a drawback with something.
Yeah.
And if then, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to be able to live in a space that you're comfortable in. So if you work from home, you want a home office that maybe isn't right off of your dining room.
Right.
If you're the kind of worker that's super messy and likes to have papers everywhere and never has a tidy office, but you also really like to entertain, maybe you want frosted doors.
Right.
Or maybe you don't want your office on the main level. Like, there's lots of things to think about how you live and work. And so many of us now are working at home, some or part-time or all the time now. Like, things are changing. So how does that change?
Yep.
How does our life change? Are we laptops at the dining room table, or are we dedicated office space? And how do we separate work and life in a home where we work and we live?
Yep, exactly.
And
then how do you design for today while planning for tomorrow?
Absolutely, because you could have little kids now, or you could be an empty nester, but maybe you have teenagers and in 5 years they're out of the house and you don't need the kind of space that you did before, or you're getting ready to retire, but you haven't retired yet, so you think you need a big office, but maybe you don't. Maybe you need a door into an office, like an exterior door. Like, there's so many things to think about.
Yep, exactly. And we're going to help everybody do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's shift gears here as we close out. So tell us about your podcast and what your mission is with your podcast.
It's really simple. The podcast is Everyday Happiness. And really, we talk about happiness science. My concept, intentional margins, which is finding the harmony between our to-dos and our priorities, and just musings about life. Intentional margins is something that I came up with years ago, which is really just this idea that we don't want to end the day or the week or the year and wonder, what did I get accomplished? What did I do? How do I feel like I'm living in my priorities? Did I do the things that matter most? Did I spend time with my family? Did I work on a hobby? Did I have a moment to breathe? Did I go to coffee with a friend? Did I knit? Did I, read the books that I wanted to read this year? What are the priorities? And how do we fit those into our day or our week? Not every day you get to go have a coffee with a friend or whatever your priority is. We all have those priorities that make life worth living. And we get to have that and crush our to-do list. Like, we get to have both if we can manage our time. We can be busy and be balanced if we're doing the right things in this season. And seasons change.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Katie Jefcoat, Everyday Happiness, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. So this wraps up another episode of the Go with John Show. Go out there and build something extraordinary.